have what is called here, known as a Surreal clock. It was made in the early to mid 1800s, maybe a little bit later. It's kind of like a wag on the wall clock. It's a wooden plate, metal gear movements. But what is different about this clock is it's got two gongs. And when the chimes go off, let me see if I can make them go off. It's supposed to sound like bees going off. There's a cam inside on the front that moves this dial back and forth. And when this dial gets moved back and forth, there's a lever on here that will, there's teeth on the front of this gear and on the back of the gear, and this lever here activates one gong. This lever here activates the other gong. And so depending on where the cam is in position is depending on which gongs play. Of course, it's a wooden plate movement. What I don't like about these wag on the wall clocks, and I've got two of them, and before I go into that, the clock did not come with weights, and it didn't come with a pendulum or the pendulum leader wire here. What I don't like about these clocks is this thin plate right here. This thin plate, and you can see I can bend it, was connected to the clock like so, but only on the front. And then they would have hooks that would hook into holes on this thin piece of wood. I've had this clock for probably a year or more now, and I study and I try to figure out how I want to repair a clock. I like to go original if I can. I didn't want to go original with this thin plate, and that's because it is flexible. Most people grab a clock from the face. So if you were to pick up this face, you're going to break this clock. So what I did was traced out this piece of wood, put some sticky Velcro tabs that I bought at Walmart that's supposed to be good for like, I don't know, 100 pounds or so. And then I connected some hooks to the wood and screws into the original movement on both the top and the bottom here. So I can grab this clock like this and it ain't gonna go nowhere. The reason why I did that, this face and dial is fairly rare. Most of the faces, the shield is wooden in these clocks. They might have a porcelain dial, but most of the faces are wooden. And I didn't want this original shield to break. So I put the Velcro straps here also. Now the dial, which is original porcelain, but it has cracks in it. Let me grab another one and I'll discuss it. This dial's the same way. Originally, they would solder 3 hooks into this dial, and those 3 hooks would connect to the holes that are in this porcelain base. I don't have the money to pay a professional to redo these dials. This porcelain base also goes on another clock. So temporarily, what I did, one still had the hook in it. And there it is. I took some fishing line, put it through the holes, and you can barely see the fishing line over the porcelain base. And I went up through this hole and I tied it. That way it's not going to move. In fact, when I tied it, the 12 and the 6 are no longer straight up and down. But because I'd done what I'd done, I could connect this plate using the Velcro tabs. It takes some pressure to connect these things. So I want to be extremely careful because I don't want to break this. I was on NAWCC. There's somebody who had a Surreal clock, but they didn't have the porcelain face. And the NAWCC was explaining to the person about the clock. These things, like I said, with the porcelain base, are extremely rare. But I have this Surreal clock, which is worth quite a bit of money. And I have a wag on the wall clock, which takes this porcelain dial, but it also has a porcelain base. Let me show it to you real fast. Here's a wag on the wall clock. I've shown a video in the past on it. It's got side doors here. Now this thing has the original pendulum on it, and I might use that pendulum, and it ticks away. It chimes, it does everything. I'm just in the process of putting the face on and how I want to do it. I screwed this face on, but I don't like it. I'm going to do the same thing as I did to the other clock with the Velcro strips. And then use fishing line to tie the dial on. Poor people gotta do what poor people gotta do. And like I told you time and time again, the only person that matters what the clock looks like, unless you're going to sell it, is yourself and your spouse if you're married. I'm not married, I'm single. I can do whatever I want to my clocks. And I'm sorry for the people who don't like what I'm doing. That's just part of life. You either love it or you hate it. I love what I'm doing to the clocks. It's taken me over a year to work on that Surreal clock, but I love what I've done so far. What I mainly love about it is, and you know, I don't understand why they would use such a flimsy piece of wood. And there it goes. I can put it in a warp. It might have been because they built these things and didn't think that they would last this long. The wag on the wall clock I showed you, this is the wooden plate that they used. And it's broken. Can't use it. So I'm gonna make my own wooden plate, just like I done with this one, and I'm gonna Velcro it in, and then I'm going to use these eye hooks to secure it. These were the original eye hooks, and like I said, they would go into a hole that is in this flimsy piece of wood, and expect this porcelain face and dial to stay on here. Yes, it does stay on a little bit with the hands, but how do you grab a clock? I typically grab a clock like this, where in this clock you would have to grab it from underneath and behind, but how are you going to get it off the wall? You could do something like this, but out of habit, I wanted to make sure that this antique and rare porcelain face was secured. I still have a little ways to go. Oh, I also want to show you, I got to find out what I did with them. Stand by. But this clock came with original hands also. So even though I don't have the weights, and it don't have the pendulum, original porcelain face, original porcelain dial, and original hands. How cool is that? I hope y'all enjoyed this video. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel, and God bless.